one of the things that was emphasized last time was the issue of food security challenge. Today, we are going to look at how we are going to be able to, prepare ourselves to take up opportunities that will arise or that already exist in this part. So, to take us on the introductory stage is no other person that our very own president is going to be taking us on the overview of agribusiness value chain in developing countries. He's going to be discussing some data and also driving it home to our local economy. Back to you, Dr. Tunde Adeyemi.
Okay. Thank you, Osas. And I want to appreciate everyone that is joining us again today for this wonderful series. In our last webinar on Tuesday, we made mention of certain wonderful things. We discussed basically agribusiness management, and the need for agribusiness management was the center of our discussion in our last webinar. And like we said also too, we tried to look at the introductory part to agribusiness management. Some of the key major things that we highlighted in the course of that particular meeting, among other things, was agriculture and agribusiness as the highest employer of labor. We tried to debunk a lot of assertion within the system that agriculture is the highest number of labor or labor employer in the sub-Saharan Africa. And we try to see how Africa can move from agriculture to agribusiness. We know a lot of us have gone through, they've been hearing this for over a period of time, and anywhere you go in Africa, they will tell you the highest labor employer is agriculture. But we still see a lot of challenges despite having many people in agriculture. A lot of people are still unemployed. So today we want to try and start profiling the solution. And the solution that we come up with also in our last class is turning agriculture into agribusiness. Our focus is on investment in agribusiness and not really agriculture, which we think is going to assist the sub-Saharan sustainable development goals. Agribusiness solution to the current development challenges was looked at, and we also to try to explain that agribusiness will drive the current sub-Saharan African GDP by 500% within the next 5 years. We make mention of certain things in our last webinar. I want to go just briefly for the past 2-3 minutes to talk about it. We talk about the issue of food security, which is the key major challenges. Recently, in the article of the United Nations, it was said that Africa economy will expand, especially sub-Saharan like Nigeria, where told is going to expand to about 300% in population in the next 100 years. And by 2050, they believe we will have doubled our current population, which portend the issue of are the food available. And as we have seen, like we've discussed in our last webinar, that sub-Saharan Africa is still the major net importer of food, which portend a lot of security challenges to us. They will now move quickly into agriculture. This has been seriously talked about. Everywhere you go, every organization, every government is talking about agriculture as the solution to take African level. But we are now looking at certain things. If agriculture has received so much investment in the last, especially 27 years, among others, why are we not feeling the effect in sub-Saharan Africa? Why are we still the net importer of food items, among other things? And that's why we come up with the issue at hand, agribusiness. The government needs to start changing its focus away from agriculture alone into agribusiness. Agribusiness, that we discussed in our webinar the last time, include on agriculture and other ancillary like farming, transportation, and this is where the focus should be. It should be on agribusiness and not only on agriculture. As we keep on going on in this series, we are going to give us some few things also to be able to help us and drive home the point that we discussed. In our last webinar, we put so much emphasis to discuss Nigeria. Also here in Togo, where we are as well too, we want to share some few things as well, which in the next series, we are going to go deeper into how agribusiness will be able to transform the sub-Saharan economy. And like we have seen, the Togo Republic with about 8.6 million population as of this year, is only able to manage a GDP of about 5.5, even though one way or the other on PPP base was based on 14 billion. But really, UN and World Bank still believes that at the end of this year, they should be able to clock 7 billion. 7 billion GDP for a country with 8.6 billion. And majority of the people is into agriculture is still far cry below what we're supposed to be looking at in the sub-Saharan Africa. And we can see from the GDP that agriculture only contributed 28.1% to that, which means every other thing comes from the services. Apart from the fact that this particular figure is too low to be able to drive the future of the sub-Saharan country like Togo, one key major important thing is that the contribution of agribusiness has not really been taken advantage of. And like I said, in our future webinar, we are going to give you deeply into this economy and what they can do to actually sort out this particular situation. Now, let's go into our agribusiness. In our last class, we have divided it as all the value chain involved from agriculture, or from what we call from the farm to the table of the consumer, is what we actually term agribusiness. Agribusiness today will be looking at one or two key major things, especially the effect of the pandemic on agribusiness. Agribusiness also too were able to receive some worst hits, especially in the sub-Saharan Africa. There were disruptions to the food supply chain, which is still remain a major situation, and a lot of factors that are still remaining unknown. We'll be talking about some of those unknown as we keep on going on. I want us to keep in mind one of the key major important areas we've been looking at here, which is the issue of food security. Africa is still a net importer and deficit in agriculture, which is one of the key major things why this particular webinar is being organized, to try and assist and bring to the table what needs to be done to be able to achieve the turning the net importer to net exporter. We believe also too from our research that West Africa only come about 9.5% impact in agribusiness is what is felt in its GDP. As we keep on going, we'll be discussing more about this. Developing economies in Africa without effective value chain was worst hit, like we said before. And the key major lesson that there is that our economy needs to revisit agribusiness value chain by understanding the huge effects, the impact that it has, and opportunity for the economy. And like I said, our webinar will be going on, as we go with the webinar, we are going to be looking at each of these areas and how the Sub-Saharan Africa, like Nigeria, Togo, and other West African countries, can take advantage of this huge opportunity base. And like we said before, our webinar has been categorized in various areas. So I'm going to start also too by just keeping and looking at what has been the impact or what have been introduced by various writers in the field of agribusiness in a simple, or what they call the layman term. What is agribusiness value chain? Agribusiness value chain from this particular theory means that from farm, distribution center, logistic factory to retail store, all this traceability is what in a normal language or a simple language, what we mean by agribusiness value chain, which means it is not only the farming which is actually being discussed enormously in the system today, that is the major important area to be focused on, but every value chain that will make that particular agriculture to bring food to the retail store or to the consumer table. Things like distribution centers, storages, logistics, factory, agro-allied industry, which we are going to be looking at as we keep on going in this series and our subsequent series as well too. Let's look at the position of another writer of what agribusiness means by looking at using the food supply chain. That is, from the farm, when those things are being put together, which is what they call agriculture, to when it is taken to the manufacturing for agro-allied to be turned into food, how it's going to be packaged, transported both abroad and locally, and to the local market or to delegates to the relevant homes across the world. This is another postulation of the simple meaning of agribusiness value chain. What I want us to look at is that all these different areas are what actually help the economy to be able to appreciate investment in agriculture. And also too, a silver value chain, like we said earlier, start from the pre-production, production. And what it is saying simply is that apart from agriculture as a whole, which stands on its own in terms of the farming, the seed, the fertilizer, the tillage, and every other things, we still have various areas. After the harvest is done and every other things involved till it gets to the table, I'm going to use further slide to be able to, because I want to just skip a bit and look at where we are actually going here. This is our agribusiness value chain, which we are going to spend so much time on, explicitly as we keep on going forward. Like we mentioned earlier, we are looking at value chain in terms of everything involves in making agricultural development achieving its aim. The first part is agriculture. Agriculture starts from both the land and the farming. And not today, a lot of investment is actually into land and farming. And we are asking the question, there are still so much opportunities. Many farmers are still not able to get qualitative seeds. What that simply means is that can't we set up seedling company in Africa, Southern Africa, that can supply Africa and the whole world with seeds, so we can reduce the foreign exchange being invested enormously in this area. The other issue is the issue of equipment and tools. A lot of countries, really in Togo here, where they are still using hoe. Majority of the farmers, about 94% of them, still use hoe to till the ground, which has already gone beyond. How many of the acre can they till and how many hectares can be tilled? These are the areas we're going to be looking at. Then we now move to the issue of manufacturing, to logistics, to services and stakeholders. And like I says, I'm going to try as much as possible to look at that area as we keep on going. What we are just having is the introduction to where we are going. In our last class, we talked about Nigeria in terms of the what is actually contribution of agribusiness to the global GDP of 448 billion, which has reduced by about 17% based on the current market exchange rates as well too. We're looking at this particular area and start asking a lot of questions. One of the questions is this the best we can do as a nation in Nigeria, for instance? So I'm going to start from here to look at our agribusiness in the introduction part. And like I said, as we keep on going this series, various of our presenters are going to talk about how the effect of all these areas, and in their future as well too, everything we'll be doing will be centered on each of these value chain. But today we'll be looking at all the value chain together. Now we are looking at agriculture. Currently, we are told that agriculture only contributes about 10 billion, which is about 120 billion to the current GDP, which is about a quarter of the GDP. And we believe this particular amount is too small, which brings us to the fact that despite all the investment, we've not been able to look at the bigger picture. If the full value chain is actually implemented, we believe agriculture alone has potential to generate 65 billion on constant basis. And what that simply means is that close to $900 billion can be added to the current GDP, which is even times 2 of the current GDP by agriculture alone. What we need to do is to focus on the seed and inputs that takes out of foreign currency, that is not good enough, equipment, the land, especially the infrastructure area, which we are going to concentrate on in our future webinar. We see further that today, a lot of farmers are still having problem with infrastructure, especially irrigation. Some farmers recently are showing a lot of concern that they might not be able to have proper output because of the rain situation in the country in this particular year. And World Bank and others have already said that also too, this might affect a lot of farmers, coupled with the pandemic that we just went through. Also too, we look at manufacturing. Manufacturing currently puts about 4.4 billion, which is about 50 billion to the current GDP of Nigeria as a country. We are looking at Nigeria now, focusing as a case study. We believe the potential, if all the value chain are properly put in place, at least even pessimistically, we should be able to have between 335 billion on a constant basis. That is what that means, that are close to 400 billion. That is close to the current GDP can be generated alone from manufacturing. What are we talking about? We're able to put adequate food processing in place, put proper production line in place. Packaging has been done properly that it can be able to feed the country itself. Even if we are not even exporting abroad, we believe there's so much potential that manufacturing can be able to be added through agribusiness value chain, being effectively taken advantage of. Now we have the issue of transportation. Currently, in the current GDP that we have on constant price, we are told that transportation and logistics only accounted for less than $1 billion. That's what we are talking about. Just about $10 billion is being added to the global 448 billion GDP by transportation. This is a major lapse, because if the agricultural value chain alone is put in place, the potential of this particular sector alone or value chain alone is about 12 billion. That is, we are talking about close to $120 billion annually GDP to be generated from transportation and logistics. What do we need to do? Is at every point from manufacturing to the where we get to the final consumer, proper logistic chain is put in place. Warehouses are put in place. Storages, silos are built all over, whereby we have lesser goods being spoiled and more goods can be kept to feed the nation, to feed the sub-Saharan, and also globally as well too. And we're able to look at making so much money from this real change. Like I said, this area are going to be looked upon in our future webinar as well too. Let's move to services. Services currently introduced about 18 billion globally, not only agri and other services as well too. We believe if the agribusiness value chain is properly put in perspective, this 18 billion is far cry of the 85 billion due to the contribution of the services into the global GDP. 85 billion is talking about close to 800 to 900 billion dollars added to the current Nigerian GDP. If the value chain is actually put in place properly, what that simply means is that we can be able to get low-cost finance, even locally, structured finance. Insurance will be able to be explored very well. Marketing will be able to find a way effectively run through a lot of places too. Our capital market professionals can be able to generate so much, and consultants at every level will be able to contribute more because the value chain of agribusiness is actually working. Also too, we want to move into trades, and like I said, these are just we are just looking at the summary in this particular webinar of agribusiness value chain. Our future, again, let me just reiterate, we'll be looking at each of these areas and tell you specifically business you can do in this area and how you can actually grow the economy of the sub-Saharan. Indeed, we have trades as well too. Like we said today, we are the net importer in Nigeria, even in some part of Togo where we are as well too. Because one of the major challenges we are facing is that we are risking the issue of what you call the next pandemic, food security. If you have to import everything you need, then you have a challenge. What we are looking at is that if the agribusiness value chain, which we are postulating as the solution to the current South Africa, is put in place, we should be able to be a net exporter to $30 billion. And what that means is that we should be able to generate net export. This is Nigeria alone, about 300 billion to the GDP. So when we are telling you that Nigeria can book into $2 trillion GDP, we know what we are saying. And as we keep on going, we are going to break them down. What we are saying is that by actually exploring the domestic and the foreign market, and also too putting the consumer at every level into active duties and active participation both at the rural and urban area, among other things. Also to finally want to look at some other areas that also to form part of agribusiness in terms of infrastructure. Is a key major thing. I know countries like Nigeria and the sub-Saharan Africa is happening so much on infrastructure. World Bank is saying so much. They are putting so much effort, investment into infrastructure. And we believe this is a wonderful area as well too. That if it is domesticated properly, it can actually add so much to the GDP. Government at every level, as a stakeholders too, needs to reorient their policies to be able to start focusing on this area. We knew that yesterday in Nigeria, the 2050 Nigeria agenda was actually signed as well too, to start a work. We'll talk about that one in future as we keep on going. Then also investor base. Today, South Africa has not been seeing so much of investor base, and that is a major challenge because we have so much disruption in technology that's supposed to help the agribusiness to function effectively. And except we have adequate investors at this particular level, we might not be able to achieve what we actually supposed to be doing. This is why we are saying, among other things, agribusiness is actually the real thing, not agriculture. And not today, Every government will tell you, oh, agriculture is what we are focusing upon. But going forward, what we are doing as an institution in CPTEC, a private university in Sub-Saharan Africa, is we have gone into so much research and we are still continuing with it. And now we can help the nation of Sub-Saharan Africa to sit down and actually rejuvenate themselves, find a way to reinvent themselves into agribusiness by looking at this value chain and using them to grow their GDP, their livelihood, and making Africa to come back to the original plan as the feeder of the whole world. And like we keep on going, we are going to allow the next speaker who come in now to take the next particular area. And like I said earlier, in the future, going forward, and next webinar, we are going to delve into each of these areas in agribusiness that we have talked about. And we are going to show not only the businesses that you can do in each of those areas, but how you can actually use this as a way to grow individual entrepreneur and the locality and make Africa the feeders of the world and envy of the world going forward. Thank you so much. And I will allow the next presenter to actually take the next lead. I will come back later to recap.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tunde Adeyemi, for that brief introduction on agribusiness and value.